any Sunday, almost anywhere, you'll find friends getting together to ride motorcycles. But these three are a little different. They're three of the best riders in the world. The legendary Malcolm Smith, one of the greatest off-road riders of all time.
Bruce Penhall, United States Speedway champion.
And the world road racing champion, the phenomenal Kenny Roberts.
Never ever thought about doing anything else. I worked in a shop when I was 14, 15 years old, just to be around motorcycles.
28 seconds. 10 seconds. Stop!
But he had little experience at road racing. The fastest and most dangerous type of racing there is. To try to help Roberts, his sponsors asked former world road racing champion Kel Carruthers to give the kid a hand.
I can watch what he's doing. I can watch what other riders are doing. And I think Kenny is one of the few riders that does the right thing virtually all the time.
Kenny had had little opportunity to road race, so he followed Carruthers around the tracks, learning what he could from the champion. But after only a couple of races following Kel around, Kenny started winning and leaving his tutor behind. His natural ability and dirt track aggressiveness made Roberts an instant road race superstar in the United States. His sensational knee-dragging style endeared him to the fans. In all, he won 28 national championship races, more than any other man in history. And that's why they call him King Kenny. With no challenges remaining, Roberts left the dirt tracks of America behind and went to Europe to compete against the best in the world. To Europeans, road racing is more an obsession than a sport. Some of the major races attract over 300,000 spectators. There are so many fans, they have to set up TV monitors for those who can't get close enough to see the race.
I'm stationed with the United States Air Force, and about a year ago when I read that Kenny was coming over to contest the World Championship, I extended my enlistment so I could stay and watch him compete.
The Europeans didn't consider Roberts much of a threat. It took years to learn the different circuits well enough to even attempt to try to win. On the Isle of Man, the course wanders through 38 miles of backcountry roads and villages with more than 180 turns per lap. Since the first race in 1907, more than 100 lives have been lost. You had to race them many times to learn them well enough to win. No American dirt tracker was going to master this sophisticated European sport overnight. Even his sponsors didn't expect him to make much of a showing his first season, but they all forgot to tell Kenny he wasn't supposed to win. In the first 3 out of 5 races, Roberts blew him away, and the proud Europeans didn't like it.
One thing. The other thing is that they wouldn't talk to me, and they wouldn't tell me why they didn't pay me, so I don't have to take their trophy. If I have to race here, which they say I have to, then I have to race here, but I don't have to take the trophy. If they're gonna treat me that shitty, you know, I don't need the trophy.
Kenny kept on racing and winning. He beat him in Austria, smoked him in England, and roosted him in Germany and Italy. His legend grew. The Europeans just didn't want to believe that an American rookie could do that to them. In Europe, the race goes on no matter what the weather. And because when it rains in the States, the races are stopped, Roberts had zero experience riding under these conditions. Kenny didn't have a rain tire, and the European manufacturers refused to sell him any of their secret computer-designed rain treads. But this didn't stop Kenny. He cut his own by hand from his racing slicks and won the first time out, totally demoralizing the rest of the riders.
I don't like... No, rain is not good for racing.
Do you like racing in the rain?
Yes.
You do? Why?
Oh, I cannot explain. Maybe because I never crash.
Kenny Roberts raced the entire European GP circuit, and when the season was over, this young American superstar had won an incredible 12 out of the 18 races, and the coveted title, World Road Racing Champion. But perhaps his greatest triumph was winning the respect and admiration of the European riders and fans. Even the man he dethroned, two-time world champion, Englishman Barry Sheene.
He's an exceptional rider, and I like racing with Kenny because he's clever, he's very, very skillful. There's a lot of guys that go quick, but I hate racing with them because you get alongside them and they don't give you any room, don't cut you any slack, as they say in America. And Kenny's not like that. I can race with Kenny, and if I beat him through going quicker than he did. And if he beats me through going quicker than I did. You know, there's no shutting the door and pushing me out or any kind of stuff like that.
So, in his first year on the circuit, known as the World Series of Road Racing, King Kenny came home with all the roses. First year coming to England, to Europe to race, nobody really expected you to do well. I mean, everybody kind of felt, well, here's a cocky young Yank that really he does well in the States, but he's not going to do too well in Europe.
Well, I proved I was a cocky young Yank. I also proved that we could road race. The thing about going to Europe was that they didn't expect me to do well because I was the first year there, and I had tires that had never ridden in Europe. Goodyear had never been to Europe, so that's why they didn't expect me to do good. I didn't know the racetrack.
What about the other riders? What about Sheene? How did they take to you?
Well, Sheene was doing all the winning before I got there and doing all the talking. So all I had to do was start showing some results and then keep him talking. And he would eventually psych himself out, as it turns out, and be so psyched out that he was letting riders beat him without even his talent.
First time you raced in the rain, a lot of people thought you were completely crazy, yet you did very well.
Well, the first time I raced in the rain, I raced in Europe in the match races, and I won. So, of course, they knew I was crazy. I confirmed it the second time I raced in the rain, and I fell off right down the main straight, about 130 miles an hour, insisting that I had to set the track record in the dry just to show them that I could do it. And in front of thousands of people, doing my slide on my back and slide on my foot and slide on my butt for a while. And they were all odd at this. They didn't, here I am right in front of them crashing. I hit the hay bales and the bike bounced across the track. And well, I got up and I went, wow, that was neat. All these people looking down on me going, they just didn't say nothing. And I saw one girl look at her boyfriend and say, he is really crazy, isn't he?
Some would say you're an Iron Man in racing. Do you consider yourself an Iron Man?
Well, I'm not scared of anything I can see, anything I can do personally. It's the beyond I don't know. Now, take me skin diving, where there's just a big black wall out there, and I know a fish wants to eat me. I know there's a fish out there that wants to eat me. I don't want to be down there. It scares me to death. I couldn't do it.
But 180 miles an hour on a motorcycle in the rain doesn't frighten you? No problem.
Absolutely no problem. That's why I do it.
Dateline Irvine, California, there's been a scheduling error on the tracks between Lompoc and LA, causing slight damage to 2 locomotives. The Highway Patrol has developed a new airborne radar system to catch speeding motorcyclists. It works like this. The airplane sneaks up on the unsuspecting violator, and the radar records his speed. The one problem is, the aircraft must be within 2 feet of the suspect. Looking back at great moments in racing, Germany, 1949. Daring young cyclists roar through the Rhine Valley, hitting speeds well over 63 miles per hour. Each contestant is timed 1 by 1 after a flying start until they reach the finish rock at the end of the course.
Catalina, 1957. An international contingent of riders converge on a beautiful island off the coast of California, here to participate in the most prestigious Grand Prix race in the United States. Even a couple of famous movie personalities are in attendance. This event starts with a beauty contest to pick the best-looking bike and rider. Here's something new, a Yamaha built in Japan by a piano company. By the looks of it, they should stick to making pianos. They line up for the start, and the spectators are wild with anticipation. And they're off. But women and small children should not watch the next scene, as we will witness one of the most horrible accidents in motorcycle racing history. This torturous 100-mile race is made up of 10 10-mile loops, starting in town and into the hills to negotiate the tricky high-speed corners. Incredibly rough terrain, and a hill that claims many riders and machines. Our slow-motion camera shows the beating they take as they nearly go into orbit over the jump. It's too bad for our Japanese friends. That'll probably be the last Yamaha they'll send over here. Coming back into town, they fly off a curb as if it wasn't even there and perform a dazzling display of their riding talents through the city streets. And 100 miles later, the survivors cross the finish line. And the winners include the best in the business, like Roger White, Nick Nicholson, my pals Lee and Keenan, Bob Sandgren, a happy winner, and the fastest man with a toothpick, Jack Thurman.
A quarter of a century ago, the Catalina Grand Prix was the ultimate. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Supercross, the sports success story of the decade. The tracks are constructed on football fields with bulldozers and tons of dirt. They are designed with 3 things in mind: to test the machine, reward risk-taking, but above all, to put on a great show for 100,000 screaming fans.
past several years, Supercross has been dominated by Bob Hurricane Hanna. His style is unmatched by any other rider.
And sometimes I do hit that stuff and fly all over. But to me, it's natural to try to save the bike, not to crash. You don't want to crash. You can't win if you crash. I try to save that thing to the last minute. If I don't save it, then I eat it hard.
His challengers are many. Gas and Galen Mosier. Marty Smith. Steve Wise. And Mike Too Tall Bell. And the racer they call the old man of motocross, 29-year-old Jimmy the Jammer Wynert.
Sports history. Let's hear it for number 1, Bob Hurricane Hanna.
Now I gotta win. They'll all be pissed off at me.
Bob Hanna grew up in the middle of 20,000 square miles of the best riding country in the world, the Mojave Desert.
In these hills, I learned how to ride. My dad brought me out here and let me loose every weekend for about, 10 years. It's kind of unique riding out here. You can learn, and everybody I bring out here always say that they learn more that day than they learned in 3 months on a motocross track. Riding a motocross track, you learn that track, and then you'd have to think about using the front brake. You'd have to think about going through the berm, leaning, gassing, coming out of the corner. Out here, you learn without thinking about it.
Lackey said that Europe was the ultimate goal, the World Championship. You have continually resisted going to Europe. Why is that?
Oh, a bunch of different reasons. I like it over here. I like being with people I can talk to. play with, go riding anytime I want, anywhere I want. A lot of friends over here, good money over here, food's good over here. And there's really nothing for me to go over there. Only one, a couple words, world champion. And I don't know how much that's going to buy you when you quit racing, or how much I'll even care. Right now, I'd like to say I'm world champion, just for, maybe it sounds good, but it doesn't mean that much to me. I'd rather just race over here and say I'm a motocross racer. I don't really care to be the world champion motocross racer.
On special occasions, the kids have their chance to get a taste of the big time. After watching their heroes tear up the track on Saturday night, they get the opportunity to see what it's like firsthand on Sunday. And it can be pretty awesome. As with any kid sport, sometimes you wonder who it's really for. If there is any character building lesson, it's how to take your lumps and survive. Here's a classic. The leader crashes on the last lap and is hit by his buddy in second place. He kicks him over and runs across the finish line for the win.
There has been another unfortunate scheduling error by the Lompoc and Western Railroad. 2 engineers suffer whiplash. These modern-day bronc busters should have stuck to bull riding. These steeds seem to be more than they can handle. Anchorage, Alaska. During a thrill show, a car went out of control and completely destroyed an Eskimo home. But the show went on, and the surviving Eskimos loved it. Madman Farnsworth was the hit of the show until his motorcycle was repossessed, but that didn't stop Madman. The object of this event is to try and knock over as many white pegs as possible. Here are some of the professional peg knockers showing their stuff.
Dateline, Wembley, England. The championship speedway races were held here. It's won by some Polish bugger, I believe.
Machines that are identical to those that raced a half-century ago. Raw simplicity, 180 pounds, a huge 500cc single-cylinder engine putting out over 50 horsepower on pure alcohol, an almost unbelievable acceleration rate of 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3 seconds flat, and maybe the strangest point of all, no brakes whatsoever. When the clutch is dropped, the Speedway bike accelerates so fast it almost tears the rider's arms out of their sockets. Riding a Speedway bike is unlike riding any other type of motorcycle. You stand up in the turns rather than sit down. And because there are no brakes, the only way to slow a Speedway motorcycle down is to turn it. But you've got to turn it right to go left. And using the delicate balance of the hair trigger throttle and the position of your body on the bike, you try to hold everything together long enough to win the race. One of America's best Speedway racers is Southern California's Bruce the Fox Penhall.
Gotta go for it. I haven't had any practice, so I'm a bit wobbly, so just take it easy for a couple laps and gas it.
Because Speedway races only last 4 quick laps, less than 40 seconds on the smaller tracks, the start is the most important part of the race.
If a rider breaks one of the starting tapes, he's disqualified from that heat and sent to the pits. If he breaks all of the tapes, he's sent home. Speedway racing in this country has got to be experienced to be believed. The fans are as much a part of the show as the racing. And the crashes are frequent. And the fans are quick to voice their displeasure. As the night wears on, some of the fans can't help letting it all hang out. But it's in Europe where Speedway racing reigns supreme. 90,000 fans for the World Championship in England's Wembley Stadium. 120,000 in Poland. Penhall, the American champion, left the beaches of Southern California to face the challenge of Europe's best. His good looks and easygoing professionalism quickly endeared him to the European fans. 2 things made Penhall's style stand out against the Europeans: his agility gained from years of surfing, and his aggressiveness, a result of his experience with close contact on the smaller American tracks. When you're a Speedway champion in Europe, it's like being a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. You are truly a superstar. And these are Europe's superstars. New Zealand's Ivan Major, 6-time world champion. Denmark's Ole Olsen, 3-time world champion. Sweden's Anders Michnik, former world champion. And Michael Lee, 2-time British champion. These are the men Penhall came to race against. Bruce, here in the red leathers, was chosen to ride for one of the top British League teams. In England, Speedway is big. So big, many races are televised and the results are printed daily on the sports pages of the major newspapers. Bruce Penhall gave up a lot to race in Europe. The comforts of a luxurious Southern California lifestyle, a beautiful oceanfront beach house, fast cars, and the legendary California girls. He seemed to have it all, but for some reason there was something driving him to the max. A world-class title that had not been held by an American for 42 years. Penhall was at the top. As current American champion, he faced a relatively easy racing schedule that left him plenty of time to enjoy the money he was making from track winnings, sponsorships, and endorsements. There's a summer series of Speedway in Europe called the Masters Tournament, consisting of meetings in Sweden, Germany, and the final round here in Denmark, with only the 60 best international riders invited. Penhall came into the final round tied for the lead. Bruce was definitely the underdog, but the Danish fans were ready to see what the golden boy of American Speedway could do. And this was the man he had to beat, Peter Collins, looking for his third consecutive Masters title.
Down for you, put right in front of your face. That's good for me because I struggle a little bit, organizing everything. They do it all.
No American had won a major Speedway title since Jack Milne in '37. Bruce had little to lose and everything to gain. He was relaxed, confident, and ready. In his first heat, Penhall lined up in the number 4 outside starting position. The gate went up, and Penhall swooped around the other 3 riders to move up to challenge second on the back straightaway. It was Ivan Major, the 6-time world champion, out in front, with Penhall passing Major in the 3rd turn and stunning him, looking around and running away with the race. Penhall in front, Major running second, Sweden's Anders Michnik and Michael Lee battling for 3rd. But in the first heat for Penhall, he ran away from the best riders in the world to take the checkered flag. As the night wore on, it became a duel between Penhall and Collins, here in the yellow and black helmet cover. Collins gambled by fitting a new rear tire, but it proved to be a poor bet. It all comes down to the final race of the night. Penhall, in the white helmet cover, only has to finish 3rd or better to win the prestigious Masters title and take the crown away from Collins. Bruce shocks the thousands of Danish fans by pulling out all the stops. If he falls, Collins wins. The fans don't believe it. Bruce keeps the throttle wide open and blows the doors off the rest of the field to take the World Speedway Masters title.
I can't believe it. You're going back to Europe to race again. You're giving all this up. You got the beach, you've got the girls, you've got the adulation of the American crowds, the money. You're going to go back over there and travel 1,000 miles a week, driving from track to track. Why do you want to give all this up and go back there?
I think it's dedication. I also promised my mother and father, I said, if they let me race motorcycles, I said, I'd bring home a world championship, I hope. And I still believe that. I still want to bring home the world championship.
Kind of your promise to him, huh?
Yep, that was a promise. And I'm not going to give the sport up until it happens.
Bruce's parents were killed in a tragic plane crash before he was able to fulfill his promise. But he's still there and intends to keep his word.
Japanese Speedway is like no other racing in the world. It's part of their culture to be prepared. They race on asphalt, and they're prepared to meet it. Football shoulder pads, elbow pads, arm pads, studded gloves, fiberglass armadillos on their left hands, and a boot with enough steel in it to kick over a full-dress Harley. And their bikes are a little weird. The left foot slides on the track while the right leg is jammed under a knee bar. Japanese speedway racers are trained from a young age, and they follow a Zen-like program where not only riding but mechanics are taught.
The sport is tightly controlled because the primary reason for the existence of speedway racing in Japan is gambling.
The machines are wheeled out into a handicap type of starting position. Then the riders are brought out in a covered wagon so they can't see suggested bribes from the stands. The tracks are wide and fast and a quarter-mile around. Each race lasts 8 laps, but strangely enough, there is absolutely no cheering from the crowd. The human silence is uncanny, and it lends an eeriness to the racing. As the race progresses, 3 interesting points become apparent.
First, even though Japan makes 90% of all the motorcycles in the world, most of these bikes are powered by ancient BSA and Triumph twins. Interesting point number 2. Despite the fact that they're dressed to survive being thrown from a speeding train, they never fall. And interesting point number 3, they are so smooth and precise, the racing is unbelievably dull.
Imagine 50,000 people on Valiant. And it's over that quick. Small fortunes have just been won or lost. Now, where is that winning ticket?
The news has just reached us that there's been another horrible miscalculation by the now near bankrupt L&W Railroad. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Two, 3. A homemade glider can be lots of fun, says D.M. Walden. First, pick a safe place to fly. Then, wear an approved safety helmet. Dateline, Mojave Desert, the 1956 Big Bear Run Desert Race. Thousands of riders, including famous personalities, show up for this annual event. The course is laid out across 100 miles of this trackless wilderness. Riding their desert sleds, they cheat death as they race for the gold and the glory. After 50 miles of torture to man and machine, a pit stop is a welcome relief. A little water, some gas, and a cigarette. And they're off again. Some riders can't resist showboating a little for the crowd. But only a few will see the finish line at glamorous Big Bear Lake and enjoy the tumultuous reception. And another cigarette.
Saying, well, it was just a weird thing. But I got a good bomb run.
I got a pretty good... Desert racing hasn't changed much in the last 25 years. Stories about the good old days still take up most of the time around a campfire the night before. But it's getting tougher for old desert racers to find girls young enough to believe their stories. Before dawn, you are rudely awakened by the sweet sound of 100 bikes getting a last-minute tune-up. Down there on the starting line, there are 1,000 guys with one thing on their mind, and that's to beat 999 other guys to the base of the mountain, where the course narrows to allow only one rider through at a time. 1 minute before the start, all engines are quiet. For 250 miles, the lone leader follows arrows, ribbons, and line that mark the way, and the rest follow his dust. It has to be an incredible feeling to lead a desert race. There are pit stops about every 60 to 70 miles. If you're lucky, you can grab a drink of water. Get the rocks out of your goggles, fill your tank, and get someone to pull the cactus needles out of your tire while you try and think of a reason not to go the next 70 miles. The serious riders out in front really move, averaging 50 to 60 miles per hour over the roughest imaginable terrain. And here, Bruce Ogilvie exceeds 100 miles an hour across the open desert. For the desert racer, there are plenty of neat things to see along the way, like 10 miles of razor-sharp lava. The picturesque Whipple Mountains, where the object is to try and not hit one of those boulders. Riding downhills is harder than it looks. There are 3 basic methods: the right way, the wrong way, and the safe way. And the most dangerous part of the race, the dreaded highway crossing. So treacherous, the highway patrol insists that for their own safety, the riders must dismount and push their bikes across the road. The lava-strewn hills are a snap for the experts, but spell doom for the hapless novices. Especially when some clown tries to use you or your bike for traction. Oh yeah, there's one important thing to remember when going down a sandhill. Don't follow too close, and never, never, never touch the front brake. For the guys in the back of the pack, the race is soon reduced to a matter of survival. To get out alive, you gotta help each other. Now this poor guy has fallen off his bike at the edge of a 50-foot cliff. The guy behind him stops to lend a hand. Hey, don't worry, pal. I'll have you up and on your way in a second. Boy, am I glad to see you. I almost went over the edge. There, we got it. Hey, thanks a lot. Don't mention it. I'll see you at the next checkpoint. Good luck. And there's always that guy who's running dead last but still racing. Boy, you dirty, no good son of a... You could have killed me. What are you trying to prove, huh? Hey, what are you doing down there? Don't you know you're not supposed to stop in the middle of a trail? The finish line is just at the base of those hills, and it's a great feeling to know you are about to be among the 15% that will make it to the checkered flag. And the finish of a desert race is still like no other race anywhere in the world. No crowds, no victory stands, just the finish. And a beer or an ice-cold bottle of 7-Up to pour over your bald head. And tell your war stories to anybody who'll listen. It was great fun for the super fast guys, like Bob Valentine, and the #1 desert rider, Bruce Ogilvy.
Got anything left in your pants? Hey, you should have got about second there, guy.
It can be a little disappointing to finally make it all the way, only to find your pit crew has given up and gone home. Hey, I made it. How'd I do? Where's my finisher pin? Does anybody recognize me? Is this the check chase?
Here's your back tire.
About half a mile from the finish.
What's it rough out there? Tell us.
And there's that one that's got your name on it, and I just center punched and went over the bars.
It was really dusty. That was the big thing. It was just super dusty.
That was a lot of fun.
Yep, desert racing really is a lot of fun. Riders will be trickling in throughout the rest of the day and into the night. The lucky ones, that is. The others will have to stay out on the desert until their buddies come looking for them. The desert is strewn with broken bikes and broken bodies. Some bikes are just abandoned, and the riders start walking. Then there's that poor soul who's broken down and has no idea where he is. No way is he going to leave that brand new motorcycle behind. After pushing it for hours, no sign of civilization, and it's going to get dark soon. He's sure his buddies must be looking for him. The Desert Racer's handbook says, light a signal fire when lost, and the search crews will see it, and he'll be rescued in time for dinner. With the help of a little high-octane gas and a match, it'll be a snap, no problem. Now, you already know what's going to happen. Well, I hope somebody saw it. He's still got 35 payments left on that signal fire. This has got to impress you. Nothing could be more unlike high-speed desert racing than observed trials, where the object is simply to negotiate a short section of trail without touching either foot to the ground. A simple object, maybe, but not a simple task. Each time you dab your foot, you lose a point. This guy just lost 300. Meet 20-year-old Bernie Schreiber, the World Observed Trials champion. The youngest world champion in the long history of trials, as well as the first American to ever win the world championship. Absolutely nobody can do the things Bernie can do on a motorcycle. Let's take that section a little bit slower. Bernie is simply amazing. Even the best riders would find this maneuver virtually impossible. Now watch his rear tire. 2 inches further back, and it'd be all over.
To report that there was not, I repeat, not an accident on the L&W Railroad this week. Smoke diving champion Flaming Freeman fries his way into the record book. Once extinguished, he treats us to his famous mouse imitation. Dateline, Churchill Downs. The most disastrous Kentucky Derby in history. And the last time apprentice jockeys will ever be allowed to participate. The incompetent fools made a shambles of this racing classic. In the home stretch, there were only 2 horses left. The owner of the winning horse had his afternoon totally ruined when he was dragged to death before 100,000 cheering fans. The Autobahn, Germany. A streamlined motorcycle attempts to set a new speed record. The driver is strapped in, tests his brakes, and he's off.
There's an expression coined by professional racers to describe their determination: race face. And you don't have to be a pro to wear a race face. Parents get into the act too, with predictable results. After the winter break, our hero Kenny Roberts was preparing to return to Europe to defend his road racing title. His sponsor had designed a new motorcycle for him, and Kenny went to Japan to test it. Then, 6 weeks before the first Grand Prix, disaster struck.
There was a real fast right-hand corner coming onto the straight. It's a Yamaha test course. And as I entered the turn, maybe 120 miles an hour, the front wheel went away from me. And next thing I knew, I was up against the guardrail. And I hit the guardrail with my back, and at that I paralyzed the insides, ruptured my spleen, fractured my left foot, and I had a compression of the 11th and 12th vertebrae. And they went in and operated on the spleen and put me in a cast, a couple of casts, and in 3 weeks sent me home.
Everyone thought Kenny was through, but just 6 weeks after his near-fatal crash, he was back on the track and ready to race. No one thought Roberts would be physically strong enough or psychologically prepared to do battle with the men who wanted to take his title away from him. He was going to face 4 major problems during the upcoming season. One, even when at his best, Roberts was not good when push-starting his bike in the European-style run and bump. Roberts' second problem was Will Hartog, the Dutchman. Third, Englishman Barry Sheen, who desperately wanted his title back. And Kenny's fourth problem was the handsome and daring Italian, Virginio Ferrari. Now, with his serious injuries, the weakest part of his talent would be magnified. In a sport where a tenth of a second can mean the difference between winning and losing. The thought that this could happen again while his back was still broken would make the average rider hang it up. Sheen had won the first race while Roberts had been confined to his bed back home, still recovering. But Kenny rejoined the Continental Circuit at the second Grand Prix at the Salzburg Ring in the panoramic hills of Austria. Everybody thought Kenny had just come to watch. They were shocked when he put his leathers on over a back brace and was going to try and race. On the first lap, Kenny tucked right in behind the leader Ferrari, but nobody expected him to be able to keep up the pace. They didn't think a man could come back so soon after such an injury. Breaking my back was something for me to overcome, to make me go on, to make me better than I was before, Roberts told him. Before the race, they'd asked him if he was going to ride as hard as he used to. He told them, nope, I'm going to ride harder. Roberts did pass Ferrari, and the two of them ran away from the rest of the field. Kenny won the race, once more doing what the Europeans didn't believe could be done. One of the colorful villages they visit on the circuit is Imola, where the Italian Grand Prix is held. Imola moves as slow as a bocce ball until race day. They're all here at Imola. The Polish picnickers, Russians in their motorhome, and the proper British. Virginio Ferrari is idolized by his countrymen. He is a fearless rider. Ferrari was leading Roberts on points by Imola, 34-27. He was the passionate Italian fans' great hope for a world championship. His back still weak, Roberts got off to the slow start he'd expected, but he made up ground fast. By just the fourth lap, he passed Hartog, taking the lead. By the time he crossed the finish line, he had lapped most of the field and showed the Italians that Roberts was back. On to the Dutch Grand Prix in Holland, a country taken from the sea. And every June, the town of Assen is given back to a sea of motorcycles.
Champion road racers are national heroes, and their faithful fans spend thousands of dollars to dress like them. Here we have Mr. and Mrs. Kenny Roberts, Mr. and Mrs. Barry Sheen, Hartog Jr., Ms. Dave Aldana, a frogman, another Mrs. Sheen, and Mr. and Mrs. Marlon Brando. Dutchman Will Hartog was the heavy crowd favorite at Assen.
You must be the tallest racer around. Roberts is like this, and you're so tall.
I'm sorry, and I think that's the reason I'm not world champion this year.
From the start, Sheen took the lead, but the lanky Hartog passed him on the first lap, much to the pleasure of the partisan fans. Roberts struggled along in 8th place. His suspension had failed, causing his bike to shudder terrifyingly on the fast bends. When it wobbles like that, you don't do nothing, Roberts said. You don't sneeze, you don't hiccup, you don't even breathe. All you do is hang on, and soon he was nearly a lap behind Hartog. Ferrari was on their tails. First he picked off Sheen, then Hartog, leading his way around the twisty 5-mile Assen circuit. Sheen pressured Ferrari for the full 90 miles, but his bid fell short by 1/10 of a second. Ferrari won the second Grand Prix of his young career. Following Sheen, Hartog had taken 3rd to uphold Dutch honor. But more significantly, Ferrari had moved ahead of Roberts into the World Championship points lead. In the end, it came down to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Winning here would mean the World Championship for either Roberts, Sheen, Ferrari, or Hartog. Roberts set the fastest lap in practice, but when the front row lined up for the start, he was missing. He had somehow met trouble on the warm-up lap. There he was behind the grid, Carruthers and the other mechanics working furiously on the bike. Kenny had popped a wheelie on the warm-up lap and popped a clutch seal. Both he and the bike were coated with oil. The seal had to be replaced. The race would start in minutes, with or without him.
Grab from this side. Give me one of those cans. You get a stick in? Yeah. Mind your arms. Yeah. Lean it more over to the left. Time 36, Kenny. Okay, watch out. Let's go. All right, Kenny. Kenny, wait.
The seal was replaced and most of the oil wiped off. Roberts pushed the bike through the grid to his start in the pole position with only seconds to spare. They didn't know whether the seal would last for the length of the race. How would you like to be sitting on the front row, your bike covered with oil, your mechanic yelling at you it's not right, and in less than 30 seconds you'll be going 180 miles an hour? Hartog had used his long legs to get a perfect run and bump start. He spurted into the lead as they swept around the bend called Maggot's Curve. By the end of the first lap, both Sheen and Roberts had caught up. Kenny was reminded of the shaky oil seal every time his hand slipped off the handlebars because of the oil on his gloves. The pits had signaled that Ferrari blew his engine. Now the world title was down to 3. For 10 laps, Hartog led Sheen and Roberts, but they ran away from him.
and now it was down to 2. It became a terrific battle between the Englishman and the American. Kenny had the lead on the last lap, and Sheen planned his move on the last turn, a 130-mile-per-hour sweeper. As they approached it, he took his best shot, but it missed by a wheel. And Kenny Roberts was once again the world champion.
Good luck. Thank you. Hey, thank you. Oh, thank you. Hey, thank you. Hey, folks. Thank you. Oh, sure. I have Yamaha, 4 power.
But when the season's all over, even if you're a world champion, still the most fun you can have on a motorcycle is to go riding with your buddies.